want to take a minute to discuss something called emotional intelligence, this concept, right? And you hear this a lot in HR departments. It's a very gynocentric concept, really. Not necessarily a gynocentric concept, but this is something this is a favorite with the type of media that appeals to women, usually written by women, and they talk about emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is something that, and it's abbreviated EQ for short, as in emotional quotient, similar to IQ in intelligence quotients. But anyway, uh, there is a legitimate point to be made, and that is with emotional intelligence. A lot of it's actually about pattern recognition. So when you deal with a lot of people, you notice certain patterns. You notice when a situation XYZ happens that people tend to react a certain way, or in more nuanced, certain types of people react differently based on the stimuli. When you get to know somebody, you have a good idea how they're going to react. It's anticipation of emotional reactions based on that, based on experience. Now, some people pick up on that faster than others, and that usually has to do with people that are very aware of their own emotions, so they can relate that to somebody else. Some people aren't quite as aware. They're more cerebral, if you will. Now, there's something I want to point out, though, too, and this is very important. Emotions are perceptual. They are not at a high level of cognition, despite what a lot of people who promote EQ will say. They act like this is something that is of some special ability. It's actually not anything like actual IQ. Intelligence quotients. It's not the higher order thinking. In other words, you're not using logic and reasoning to form concepts. Emotions are automatic reactions. They are perceptual. Emotions are something that comes about as a result of stimuli. It is something that in the short term is not controllable. You can suppress or repress your emotions. It's healthy to suppress your emotions temporarily. To repress emotions over the long term is obviously not healthy. Usually signifies some kind of mental problem. And you can change your emotional reactions if you change what you're convinced of, provided that you're moving towards rationality. So this is the point I'm trying to get at. Really, the part of intelligence that's important when it comes to actually building things, or when it comes to identifying reality, is the logical and reasoning faculty. Emotions do not identify with reality. Like I said, they're automatic reactions, and as such, they don't have the sophistication. They don't have the objective view on how to understand something. So the other part, I said that part of emotional intelligence, there's some legitimacy involved. However, oftentimes I find, in my experience, and this is part of my emotional intelligence, this is a pattern I've recognized, is that it's also a justification to pass along their BS. So, they'll say, things that are not, that don't correlate with logic and reasoning. So a very simple example is, say, in San Francisco, where everybody's pressured to think in a very liberal and a very somewhat communist fashion. Someone, in the HR department in San Francisco will say that, someone with a high EQ is very conformity oriented, and you conform to the liberal communist, sort of their utopian vision. But someone who doesn't conform, that rebels against that, is said to have a low EQ. So, and that's a very probably a very overt example of this. Obviously, usually it's more subtle than that, but you understand the concept that what I'm trying to explain. EQ is oftentimes used as a justification to conform to BS. Reality and morality is defined by logic and reasoning. Emotions, like I said, are just automatic reactions. They're important. It's not to say that you go and repress them. You recognize what they are, you learn something about yourself, and it's important to identify what they are in other people. But to put emotions over reasoning, that should never be the case. You should always take the logical, the logical reasoning faculty as the primary when you're trying to actually build something or trying to construct something or trying to identify something as what it is.